A handful of legendary names are forever etched into Australian boxing history, with the likes of Jeff Fennick, Costa Zhu, Johnny Famechon and Lionel Rose among them. However, more recently, we've seen a resurgence in Australian boxing, with the likes of Kambosos Jr., the Maloney twins, Tim and Nikita Tszyu, Sky Nicholson and Liam Paro, just to name a few. However, there is one that stands above them all in my opinion, Jai Opetaia, quite simply rapidly making waves on the world stage.
Oh, what a shot!
At just 17, Jai represented Australia at the 2012 Olympics in the heavyweight division, being the youngest at the tournament. It's a testament to his talent and potential from a young age. But fast forward to his professional career, and his defining moment came when he dethroned Midris Bradis in a grueling battle to capture the IBF cruiserweight title, announcing to the world that he was going to be the next king of this division. His second win over Bradis has cemented his place among the top in the division once again, and his growing recognition is opening doors of potential matchups in the future in the heavyweight division or even the stars in the division below him. But winning a world title is just the beginning for Jai in my opinion. Now he faces a wave of hungry challengers and champions eager to take what he's earned. But will his skill set and determination be enough to carve his name not only into Australian boxing history, but as one of the sport's pound for pound stars? Let's dive into his style and see what sets him apart. But just before we dive any deeper, let me introduce you to our sponsor, Boxing Timer Pro, the all-in-one training app designed for serious fighters. Choose from dozens of training modules, build custom workouts, and drill new techniques systematically. They've just released their version 1.5, which has a new motion capture library with a growing collection of essential patterns and techniques. Download today and master the sweet science, and use the code below in the description for an exclusive discount. I have to start off with one of the things that you notice immediately about Jai's style, and that is his use of the pendulum step, and this makes up the basis of his entire style. As he tends to fight out from this movement, he constantly transfers the weight between his front and back foot to create that in and out bounce, and is usually quite prominent in the beginning of each round. And this type of footwork allows him to do a number of things that most other boxers who are flat footed tend to have issues with. And this includes a step back. By being so light on his feet, he's constantly able to step back out and away from the range of attack. And because of the pendulum step's use of transferring your weight to both your front and back foot, he uses that momentum to step back in again so the opponent can't capitalise any further. But another reason why he uses this is so he can counter, quite often making his opponent entirely miss their mark before he steps back in to hit them with something big.
We're dragging into...
Flanagan's waiting, looking for the big punch, but Jai's on straight lefts. There's that straight left hand.
He won't always be stepping back and will sometimes opt to instead go for a pull counter or even a combination of both a step back and a pull counter. Another great thing about Jai is his use of angles, and being a southpaw, his foot placement is vital to him, as he's constantly battling for that outside foot position so he can set up his backhand or even his right hook. And once he does get that position, he usually uses it to angle out away to the side of the opponent. But one of the things I really like about how Jai does this is how he utilises it to move around the entire ring. Proper ring generalship is not just about gaining centre control of the ring and pushing your opponent back. It's ultimately about utilising the entire size of the ring to your own advantage, whether you be on the front foot or back foot. Jai utilises the size of the ring extremely well and will never find himself caught stuck in one position. In combination with back steps, he also looks to take steps laterally as well, or even sometimes switches stances as he's moving around, almost mirroring that graceful footwork of a prime Muhammad Ali. However, his footwork and movement doesn't merely just serve as a defensive means, it's also used to set up his offense, as he has a myriad of ways to go about using this in feints. He will feint with his body, feint with his feet by taking steps.
Like you said, Barry was loading up, wasn't he, with the left? Yeah, the feints, the head movements, always.
Feint with his punches.
That Bradis is looking for. Oh!
He's going to have to try and push it Opetaia back, I think.
and in general just uses very jittery movements to try offset his opponents again and again.
Doesn't stop. If you see him, he's just constantly jerky movements. He's feinting with everything, with the hands, with the feet, with the head, constantly making you think. That's so mentally draining.
Constantly keeping them guessing and on their toes. And I feel mentally this also takes its toll on his opponent, as he's always applying that pressure, making it mentally exhausting along with physically, trying to keep up with what he's going to do next. In actual fact, it really reminds me of when Dmitry Bivol or even Alexander Usyk are on the front foot applying that pressure as well. One of Opetaia's favourite methods of getting reactions from his opponent is his use of the lead hand, and almost everything he does is first set up by this playful lead hand, and it really does make up the base of his offense. He will constantly be making these very circular motions with his lead hand, which of course is quite akin to Usyk. And in most cases, this motion is done all in an attempt to distract his opponents from his bigger punches, creating this almost mesmerising effect on them. His competitors will be so focused on the lead hand that they forget that something else could be coming right behind it. This circular motion is often in combination with the pendulum step as well, and he will be both stepping in and back out with the same constant motion. The lead hand is regularly touching up the opponent as well, and eventually once the opponent is distracted enough, he will look to throw in a straight punch in the middle of that circular motion.
The tone is already set.
Joe, as you watch the action here between Opetaia and Flanagan.
To further add to the effectiveness of this, Jai will often fight from a long guard, and he will keep his lead hand out. And this not only helps him better set up feints with his lead hand, but also hinders the opponent from coming in because he can simply pin them in place with his arm. When going more on the defensive, he will look to employ the use of the check hook. If an opponent is trying to be aggressive and is rushing him, he looks to try and hook and pivot with his foot to angle himself out away from the opponent. Well, sometimes he will just opt to use a regular hook counter and not pivot away from the opponent.
Can do, and just when Kelleher and make it
Relax, he's touching, he's a
Jai Opetaia that gets his...
Unlike other southpaws who tend to throw a hook over the opponent's jab, Opetaia will not just counter the opponent's jab with a hook, but will also look to counter them with a straight punch if they are an orthodox fighter. While sometimes he'll duck his head low so the straight misses him and he catches them up top with his own hook counter.
Cautious Opetaia, but...
Now perhaps his most devastating punch in his entire arsenal is his straight punch, and what makes this so effective is that he doesn't overexert this punch with too much power. Instead, Jai focuses more on timing and getting this punch perfectly placed. This is also where the effectiveness of the lead hand comes into play. Since he is constantly feinting at them with it, it's almost as if he's giving his opponent a sensory overload because they end up being so reactive to that hand. This then provides the opportunity for Jai to throw this straight punch. He won't load up on it as well and will throw it right down the middle, oftentimes making it just as fast as a jab. And just like the jab, he will also use the straight to set up other punches as well. He particularly likes to throw a straight and then end it with a right hook, which is something we see many southpaws do. Another thing Opetaia likes to do is to bring his rear shoulder a bit closer to the opponent, and this is so when he does throw the straight, the distance it has to go is even shorter. He adds onto this even further by throwing straight punches to the body, which makes this exceptionally hard for opponents to deal with, as this is the punch that has the exact same setup as the one I previously mentioned. Opetaia, using that hypnotising lead hand, will throw it right down the middle before they know it, this time angling it to the body. And this constant mix-up of where he'll throw this punch often leaves his opponents guessing. It could be thrown to the head and then next to the body or vice versa, and it's definitely a punch you don't want to get caught with.
His own shots like that at times. It comes from every angle and it's very dangerous at all times. Just like lower body, the foundation of Opetaia is just something special.
Title for Jai Opetaia. Experience and amateur pedigree with the gunpowder in those fists.
For Jordan Thompson, sink or swim. Opetaia, I've been so impressed, especially against Breeders, how easily he slides in and out of range. You can see the spring in his step. He's just moved back to centre ring, so it's important.
And as we mentioned previously, has an outstanding win on his resume.
Another body variation Jai often utilises is a sort of wide hook or uppercut, and he throws it with very exaggerated motion in order to get a reaction from his opponent. He'll usually start off with his rear hand up top, and then he will loop it downwards to hit the body. Since the punch starts high, opponents often think that he's aiming for the head, when in reality he isn't. If he starts getting to his competitor's body consistently and thinks it's causing an effect as they start to try block any low punches, he will eventually change the trajectory of the punch and go for the head. And this is exactly how he knocked out Zorro. And just like before, this is also set up with his lead hand.
Left hand over the top, if you like. What a shot that was. Bang on the button. Seconds here in the first round. Oh, what a shot. Oh, what a shot.
Another very interesting move he does is a stance switch straight, where he will switch his stance when throwing it. He will use his back foot as a sort of spring to push him forward. Instead of both feet being on the ground, the back foot pushes him forward. He uses this momentum to switch stances as he's throwing straight. This allows him to reach just a bit further to land on the opponent. Other times, he will bring his front foot forward first, and what would have been a straight in the southpaw stance has now turned into a jab.
Every time Opetaia is out of range, he springs into range and he's switching from southpaw to orthodox with the left hand. Watch how his left foot comes around and he reaches for the second shot with the left hand. There he goes now. It's like it turns from a straight left hand in the southpaw stance into a jab in an orthodox stance. It's very, very hard to deal with.
However, the drawback to this is that he needs to reset himself, as he won't continually fight out from an orthodox position. Another move Opetaia likes to use is a subtle straight counter as well. As an opponent tries to jab him, Jai will often throw his straight, and when throwing the straight left, Jai brings his head off the centre line and goes to the outside angle of his opponent's lead hand. Because of this, the opponent's jab misses, but Jai's straight lands, a very similar technique to what Manny Pacquiao used to use. Now, Opetaia doesn't really throw a huge barrage of heavy combos. Rather, he likes to pick his shots wisely and much prefers cleaner punches. He tends to only throw in singles, twos or threes, but a particular favourite of his is the right hook straight or the straight to the right hook combo. Opponents will think they are safe if they dodge the first punch, then are hit with a second one out of nowhere. However, Jai will let his punches fly when his opponent becomes stationary or if he has them backing up, and he will throw a barrage of hooks from all angles to try go around the high guard, and with these punches it's an all-out attempt to end the fight, and this is when his beastly side certainly comes out. But he's smart about this. He will only really do this if he really does think he has a good chance of ending the fight. More often than not, Jai will also simply be touching up his opponents again and again to create an opportunity to land a bigger punch. Each round then becomes a brutal beatdown.
The guard of Thompson, he's in trouble, chopping down with that right hand again.
Jordan's got to get his respect, he's got to land something of note again.
Opetaia just giving himself the angles, composed, clinical, steps in once again. Thompson doesn't have the answer. Said that he'd give Jordan one more round. He has to produce something here, and he goes again. Referee Howard Foster looks on, and that's it. And the question was, is it too soon? In the company of this man, it was way too soon.
No fighter is perfect, and one main gap is when he does let his punches fly, he does become more open because he's punching directly from the centre line. And sometimes opponents blindly throwing are able to get him in between his combinations. While another issue is because he is so light on his feet at times, he can get easily off balanced, even to the point where he's tripping over. Additionally, he tends to bring his head down to the same position when he's throwing a straight or when he's using defense to dodge punches. His head will go down in a certain position, For example, Bridas made him pay for that with uppercuts and would constantly get Jai as he was bringing his head down. While another area of weakness is maybe he's not as active on the inside or clinch position, and can get frequently pushed around and bullied in there at times, as seen in his fight versus Bridas, and will usually just look for a way to instead of fighting his way out, so he can then start boxing from that mid to long range again. But despite some of these flaws, he's an exceptional talent, and there's no doubt he will continue improving in these areas. Overall, I have to say, he has a highly tricky and slick style that often leaves opponents chasing air when they fight him. And in my opinion, the sky's the limit now in terms of what Jai can achieve in the years to come. Personally, I'd like to see him compete against the other top cruiserweights in the years to come, such as Zurdo Ramirez or Chris Billum-Smith. And then, I wouldn't be surprised if we even see him go up to heavyweight and start to have success there. But there is one thing for sure, this man is a beast. He'll be a tough competitor for anyone to face. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Jai Opetaia. Do you think he'll be able to beat the other top cruiserweights? And will he be heavyweight champion one day? Leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this style breakdown, why not check out one of these breakdowns? As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.